recorded.
Yeah, you must be.
Do we get a drink?
If you'd like for that, there's a whole thingy right there.
I only get recorded if I have a drink.
And there's more down in this is the place with the magic break room, and so.
We get Ron a drink that'll make him really fun. Is that what we're talking about
It
here?
doesn't take much.
Getting hyped up on caffeine, going to the Monster.
Yeah.
That's way too much.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. We got a pretty good turnout this month. That's exciting. I guess lots of people wanted to come here and talk. So we'll learn all about some power apps and some tips and tricks and getting started and flows and whatever else he's got for us. Should be exciting. Just by way of announcement, we usually like to start these things out. If anybody is interested, we try to reserve the first 5 or 10 minutes for kind of a community moment. If anybody has something that they did really cool at work or at home in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and like, oh, this is really awesome. I wish I could show somebody that. I'd love to give you the opportunity to show somebody that now. So if you have anything that you think would be fun to show off in 5 minutes, raise your hand, speak up, or hold your peace until next month, I guess. Nobody does anything cool at work. All right.
I don't have my computer on me right now, but that new Viva card designer is pretty cool. And it lets you use the API or SharePoint API, and it validates it. And then you can use the, what's it called? The carddesigner.io or something like that. Adaptive card.
Yeah, okay.
That's what it leverages, is adaptive cards. And so you just query the graph or like whatever, like your meetings, and then they'll give you a payload back. And then you throw it into the adaptive card designer and they'll give you a preview as you're designing it. And so for those that at least know how to use Microsoft Graph, like you don't have to be like a high-tech developer as long as you know how to do adaptive card, like JSON formatting.
It's good with developers. Down with developers.
Do they need to throw like ace cards into a Teams chat via graph? Or are you saying reading something out of a Teams meeting or Teams chat?
So like an example I had was like, I just went to the graph and got all my meetings that I have. And in that payload that it responded back from the graph, it would tell me like whether it was like, like a Teams meeting or just like an Outlook meeting.
Okay.
And then I could just use that payload, just that JSON that it comes back with, throw that payload into the card designer, like adaptive card designer. Have you ever used that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I used it extensively. I've built.
Yeah. And so it's cool because this is using Viva connections, right? And so of course you can use on the SharePoint side, but then you can also use it within Teams. And then you could use that as well to do like stuff like, especially if it's in Teams, like deep linking, where then like you click and say like, hey, if it's a Teams meeting, show this Teams icon. Sweet. Now when I click on this Teams icon, send me straight to the meeting, right?
Yeah,
send me straight to the chat with this person. It's something else, right?
So kind of dynamic
All of
base
these
cards
things.
with graph type of.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because they're adaptive IO cards, you can also get stuff that's off the reservation.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could on this one you can't because it's just as of right now. In the future they're gonna open it up to other APIs.
But you could have this card next to another card that was different, that was still an
Yes.
adaptive card.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, if you're doing your own custom ACES solution, yeah, you could use whatever API you want to leverage it. But for this out of the box Microsoft Card Designer, it lets you only leverage the Microsoft Graph API and the SharePoint API. I would say
Okay.
Graph is probably the way to go because the SharePoint one only like whatever site that you're making that card on is the site that it defaults to using it for. So if you're like on contoso.sharepoint.com/sites ABC, and you make the card on that site, that's what
It'll always use that.
it's always going to use that for that there. So I'd say use the graph because you probably have other content that may not belong to just that site.
That finally gives, in my mind, Viva connections a reason.
Just another one, yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
developed our own ace card. We have a whole Viva Connections dashboard with some 35 cards on it that we're all designed in-house using that.
And it
Ace
lets
card
you do
designer.
quick links too on there too. So you can, for example, you do a SharePoint list, you could in theory set it up so it's all clickable and you can edit those list items from that SharePoint list from that card, all within from Teams.
And my point, Josh, I think, is that You put a lot of effort into those 35.
Oh, yeah, we did. We put a ton of effort into that.
And this thing gives you a shorter path to value.
Out of the box kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's cool.
Because the idea is that if you've got a dashboard that everything is audience targeted and people can go that to do their things, request time off, check in, check out, get the news, it becomes something very useful to your end user.
Doing all of that.
Yeah, but you built all of that with a lot of toil and time and effort.
Yeah,
This might shorten some of the stuff.
manually building the REST calls to get the
Yeah.
data from the graph and stuff like that in the back end.
Yeah.
And then going and playing with that ace card designer and fiddling with things so we got it the way that we wanted it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lots of it.
that's cool. I'll play around with that. That might save us some time in the future when we want more cards like that.
Yeah, the one thing you have to do is there's some org settings. I can look it up later. But if you want to use the Graph API, you have to enable that on your tenant org settings. It's like, is something true, right? Is
Okay.
it true? I forget what that is, but
It's in the Azure settings for enterprise apps. Is that the same thing or are you thinking something different?
I'm thinking about like whatever I forget what the PnP commandlet is to get to your tenant
Yeah.
org settings. That's the one. And there's like 300 settings on that thing, but
The rules on that just changed in the last month or two.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's something I hadn't really thought about or hadn't heard of before, honestly, is the new stuff coming out. So I'll have to look into that. Well, awesome. Thank you for sharing today. Thanks for, I learned something already. This has been a great meeting so far for me.
Don't ruin it, man.
Downhill from now.
So as far as announcements go, our meetings are typically on the fourth Tuesday. That would be today, the fourth Tuesday of every single month. However, that we found that in the past November and December, that causes problems because it puts us generally in the same week as Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so to avoid particular conflicts, we generally combine those two meetings together and we do it on the first Tuesday of December. So we're going to be carrying on that tradition. If anybody wants to join us next month, do not look for us 2 days before Thanksgiving, but instead the week after, I believe it's December 3rd. So just keep that in mind. We will be combining our November, December meetings, and we won't be having anything around Christmas time, and then see us again at the end of January.
We probably should tease that our community days, or as I like to call it, SharePoint on a Saturday,
SharePoint Saturday on a Friday.
that's it, should land on about the third week in March.
You know, or maybe different. Don't do that.
Did we hear back from Christian yet?
Yeah, he said it's available that day.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And
I wasn't going to announce that until I heard back, so I
Yeah,
wasn't.
that's about, I think it's the 21st, 23rd, whatever that.
Okay.
And I'm also able to say that I have checked with the marketing leadership here. We won't have.
You're not going to conference with the conference?
No technology summit on that day either. So we're,
At least it's not now until you decide to move it to that time.
no, we are,
Somebody's better.
we have gotten first mover advantage. And that has been cleared by the poobahs. So take your bitterness and put it in your pocket, Ron.
So let's record this message, please.
It's already being recorded. We already agreed that this is.
It'll be white, this will be white.
That's true. It's on your tenant, so yeah.
I never saw that message.
All right, well, yeah, start looking forward to that. That's always a really, really fun event. We have people flown in from all over the country and sometimes from various countries to come in and speak to us on that date.
You're gonna do a presentation on how to create an agent.
Yep.
John was gonna show us the new adaptive card stuff.
We're always looking for more speakers. We're always looking for more attendees. So if you want to speak at that event, let us know. Ron always picks a really nice speaker dinner to take us all to the night before. So get a free dinner out of it. That'd be nice. Yeah, all right, everybody stop talking bad about food, I guess. New cup, move down.
all right, that worked. Thank you. Hey, it's February.
This is a low chair, Ron. I thought you were taller than
This
this.
is a cool chair, man.
Yeah, in the past we've asked, if there's anybody hiring or anybody looking to be hired, let us know, put it in the chat or something. We can see if we can hook you up on either end of that. And any other announcements from the group?
Can I wait till Ron's gone before I post that up in the work area?
Yeah, if you want to just send me like a personal message or something, so we're okay with that.
I was gonna say, we're firing, so we'll should have some openings soon.
See who pulls the trigger first on who gets fired or just quits, right?
So you're saying there's one Ron too many at Sovereign?
Not enough Rons. Too many old Rons. We want young Rons.
But Enrons.
Young Rons.
And I won't mention that adding a 50-year-old Ron would still make the average age lower.
That's right. If you find me a Ron that's under 50, then I will buy you dinner.
All right, well, there's nothing else. We'll turn the time over to Ben and learn all about power apps.
How am I doing my mic? Am I doing?
It'll just pick you up in the room.
So I don't ever have to turn that on.
Yeah, no, don't do any audio or you'll cause feedback like I did.
Okay. Oh, sure. My one
Do as
screen.
Kevin says, not as he does.
Yeah.
Words to live by.
Okay, well, no pressure to myself, but this is my favorite presentation I've ever done. So, there we go. You'll see why in just a second. But, well, actually, I thought I'd start by just getting a feel for everyone here. Who has done, maybe you can do the raising the hand thing in Teams, but who's built a Power App before? Who feels like they're doing good with Power Apps? Or is everyone here brand new to Power Apps?
So I built a power app before, but it was a while ago, and from what I understand, they've introduced this new like Canvas 2 thing that has like changed the world,
Oh.
and so I don't know anything after Canvas 2 has come out.
Okay, I don't think I've even gotten that one yet, so we'll be on the old one for
Oh,
now.
all right.
All right, so I'm guessing there's a few new people here, that's why you're probably here. Either way, the image on the left is you right now, you're weak Hercules, and after today, you will be really strong. Your skills with power.
Yeah, that week Hercules took down an entire city, and I feel like I could do that with a good power app.
Okay.
Well-crafted bug meat.
Oh, man, I don't know why I thought of Hercules, I think they have a Zero to Hero song in there.
I mean, I didn't come up with that.
He's our man.
I thought I created that from the ground up.
Yeah.
I'm so verklempt.
It's one of my favorite movies. Too. Okay, so here's a little bit about me. I'm with Sovereign SP. We do Microsoft consulting and training. I've been doing mostly Power Apps and Power Automate stuff. I actually got my degree in business administration, so I don't have any professional coding experience or anything. I actually never thought I was going to do any development stuff. I don't know if I joke about it, but I always think about it. I'm like, when I was a kid, throughout my whole life, I knew I was never going to be a doctor and I was never going to be a developer. And that's the only thing I ever knew. And anyways, but then I came along Power Apps and really got to take a look at, Power Apps is not technically in the development world. It kind of is sort of, but I started doing Power Apps. I started doing Power Automate and just fell in love with it. And I also fell in love with, I put a little Six Sigma green belt thing there. I did that in college, but that was all about, during college is when I kind of figured everything out finally, what I really liked doing. And so hopefully this is helpful for someone, but the Six Sigma stuff is all about process improvement and just improving things, making things run really well. And so I really loved that. And I feel like Power Apps and Power Automate really helps companies do that. And so that's part of the reason why I love those tools. I have 2 kids now, right there up there in the top. It's Carter and Hudson. Hudson's helmet is now off of his head now, so it feels like we can all celebrate for that.
And you can't drop Monty's head anymore.
Yeah, he's got a strong head. We thought he was gonna hit his head everywhere, but he will headbutt you and it hurts. And he is totally fine. So
And speaking for the group, that picture on the upper left-hand corner, you took that when you were 4, 5?
yeah. That's also why I have a beard, because it ages me a little bit. I shave, I feel so low. I need to update my picture now.
Tired of getting asked for ID every time you buy a beer? I get it.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna have a lot of Legos in this presentation, so I used to have Legos as a kid, so now I have these Lego sets. All these Lego sets, I wish I could say that they were mine, but these are the ones that I want, so now I want them even more now. I'm also a writer person. I like writing. Hopefully I'll call myself an author one day. So I have a little book that I'm working on. I've been working on for a long time. You can learn more about it at benfetters.com if you're interested. It's very not related to Power Apps, but it's still pretty cool. So the purpose of this session, I really thought about what someone that's wanting to learn Power Apps could really need and would really be helpful to them. I thought, since there's not too much time, I wanted to pack kind of three main purposes for this session. One of them is just to start on the right foot. I want to get you excited. I want you to feel like you can do it. Get a sense for what it feels like to kind of start building an app, how complicated it is and everything. It takes, probably a longer session to really get deep into how the app building process and everything, but we're definitely going to start to build an app today. I wanted to bring a little bit of inspiration. One of the fun things about Power Apps is there's so many different apps that you can build. There's so many different ideas that people have implemented in building these apps, and it's just a really fun thing to get into. And so I'll have a few examples, and I thought I'd ask people what some of the apps, if anyone's built apps, some of the little apps they've built. And lastly, I'll just leave with some of just some tips and resources to continue on your Power Apps journey. I started learning Power Apps right around the time it came out, and so there's a lot more resources out there and everything. And so I always try to stay on top of what are the best resources to use and everything, and what helped me the most. And so I'll share a little bit of tips that hopefully be helpful with that as well. Just talk about these Lego sets. They are very expensive. The one on the train is can anyone just guess how much? I won't do this every time, but can anyone just guess how much the train is? Just guess. Just take
It's
a guess.
Lego, right?
It's Lego. It's here.
$4.99.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how much. I'm pretty sure that's how much it is. That is the collector's edition. It has like Dementors and all that stuff. So. Oh man. Debating whether I should talk about the slide or the Lego set. Anyway, so Power Apps, real quick. I'll kind of go a little fast through here. I know I was late and everything, but and I've left a lot of text on these slides. So if anyone wants them, I meant to put in a little extra text so that if you just want the slides or something, at least there's a little bit of description on things. Power Apps is, of course, an application building tool. You can build really simple to really complex applications. You can build an app in a few minutes technically, or you can spend many hours building an app. There's technically 3 types of Power Apps. There's Canvas applications, which those are typically, at least this is all speaking from my perspective at least, usually when people mention Power Apps, they are talking about Canvas apps. These are the more customizable ones. There's lots of different components and things you can connect to with them. And then there's model-driven apps. These are more data model based. They're similar to Dynamics applications. There's a little bit less customization to them. Then there's Power Apps Pages, which I think they're separating that a little more. Anyways, those are essentially a website. They're pretty cool, actually, if you're needing to have external users come in without needing to sign in. You're able to do that. But they really all are very separate. And today we're just going to be talking about the Canvas apps. I feel like if we had more time, we could talk about the other two. But Canvas apps are usually the ones that are the type of app that people talk about the most. Maybe that's just me. PowerFX is the coding language of Power Apps. It's very similar to Excel functions. So if you're wondering, if you haven't really gone into Power Apps too much and you're trying to think about what it's like to build an app and what the coding is involved, it's really similar to Excel. There's a formula bar. You type in the name of a function and give it some parameters. That's very similar to how the language is in Power Apps. One of the really awesome things is there's hundreds of connectors. So Power Apps can connect to not only Office tools and applications, but it can connect to Adobe, Gmail, LinkedIn. Couldn't think of any other ones, even though there's so many of them. It can also create a custom API connection. So if you need to connect to a tool or an application that has an API to be able to connect to, then you're able to do that. I think QuickBooks, I looked into QuickBooks. I don't know if QuickBooks has one yet. So I think you'd have to do a custom API if you wanted to connect to QuickBooks. That's an example there, I believe.
And then if you're connecting only to SharePoint, then Power Apps is free, but as soon as you connect anywhere else, then you have to pay the license, right? Did I understand that correctly?
I think so. If you're trying to use other tools, then yeah.
You gotta do that nasty Power App licensing thing.
Right, yeah. That's a good point. And we're not gonna talk about licensing, so
We don't have all day.
yeah, right, yeah. It's a strange world. Oh my gosh. So the last thing I'll mention is Power Apps has lots of pre-built controls and components. So it's got camera, audio capturing, forms, text inputs, PDF viewers. Just has a whole bunch of them. I'll kind of show them off a little bit more. I haven't even needed to use all of them. They're really cool. So that's one of the exciting parts about Power Apps. We'll get back to this after our demo here. So let me drop out here for a second. So just to start out with building an application, just check the time real quick. We are going to build a Lego set tracker application. We're gonna track all the Lego sets that we want and any of them that we have right now.
They say do what you love and it's not a job.
Yeah. We have a GoFundMe at the end of this presentation. Just kidding. That'd be amazing.
We started giving away Legos at conferences, and it's pretty tough to keep giving away a
Oh my
$300
gosh.
Lego and say, there it goes, there's another one.
That's what started me on all this. Dang it. Oh man, so here we are in the Power Apps editor. To get here, you can go to make.powerapps.com and you'll sign in with your Microsoft account. There's kind of lots going on here, and since there's limited time, I'll kind of just do the basics here, but you can look at the different apps that you've built, or you can go to create a new app. And right here, we have different options of how to start building an app. You can start from a SharePoint list or from an Excel file or SQL. You can actually, if you use Figma, you can start build an app from Figma. And down here, I'll show this really quick. This is something I would recommend doing if you're getting started. There are a lot of just pre-built template applications, and these are actually really cool. So the fun thing about them is you create it and then you can technically use it. The way Microsoft built them is you can kind of use them and they're not really connected to data or anything. It just kind of has static data in there. But the really cool thing is you can see the logic of how they built it. So I actually got some of the things that I've used in my apps. I've taken from some of these apps. They actually have some really cool pieces in them. So if you find some of these apps and you're like, hey, I want to do a menu like that, or I want to build this type of a thing, you can kind of copy their logic to see how they do it. Most of them are built decently well and everything. So they're actually a really good little learning spot just to grab a sample application and just kind of reverse engineer it and see what they're doing. So that is one of the suggestions I have. Let's just start from a blank app. And here's our 3 different types of Power Apps. We're just going to choose Canvas app right here. And we'll call this Lego Set Tracker. Yes. Okay, so here we are in the editor. I like to compare this editor to PowerPoint. Hopefully that's somewhat helpful. But the idea is that if you think of a PowerPoint presentation, you have slides in your PowerPoint presentation, and Power Apps work sort of similarly, but instead of slides, you have screens. And so over here, you can kind of like PowerPoint, right? You can see all your different slides over here on the left, but in Power Apps, you're just seeing the different screens you have. And so just like in PowerPoint, you add stuff to various screens and you separate slides, you separate the slides out, right? So typically what you have in a Power App is you'll have maybe like a home screen and a new item screen for when you're creating a new item and so on and so forth. And so we'll kind of go into that a little bit. But just to give a quick little tutorial or an overview of the editor, up top here is where we can add stuff to our Power App. So in this Insert tab, here are all the different control. They're called controls, so I kind of interchange component and control, but anyways, they're the same thing, at least for when I'm talking. So here's all the different controls. We have text controls, text input to input text. There's date pickers, buttons. There's also a whole lot of other categories here. So you have icons, we have some media controls to insert an image or a barcode reader.
I'm shocked that the Copilot control is premium.
Yeah. We'll see how that
Microsoft
goes.
making people pay for Copilot? Never.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. We'll leave that for next week. We've got galleries, which galleries basically display data in a list for you. And there's different types of those here. We've got some display controls. You can add in some HTML text into here as well. They have some mixed reality and AI stuff, which is pretty cool. They're also premium because of the little diamond right there. Power Apps has some basic charts. You can insert a Power BI tile, which is kind of nice, but usually, at least my thoughts on this is basic charting and dashboarding stuff. I usually just keep it really basic. If you're needing to do it in a Power App, I usually just keep it super basic. You can't even make it that much complicated if you wanted to, but you still can do some pretty cool things. So let's see, we also have, the last thing I'll show is this input tab here. So here's all the different types of input controls to be able to capture and display data. So you have lots of the standard ones. There's the ones I'll point out are like a pen input for capturing signatures maybe. There's also a timer control, which actually comes in handy a lot of times. They now have an address input, which is pretty cool. And we have forms. So I won't go over everything else here, but that's just kind of a little overview of all the different things. Up here, we have so I can add a new screen right here. I can add it over here. We can change the theme, which just allows us to change some of the coloring of our app. It gives you some default themes. You can still customize it however you'd like, but I usually go with this blue one for quick little apps like this. And now let's actually add in our first control here. So I can either click on this, or I can come over here to the plus icon, and it's just kind of the same list of things over here. I'll just do it right here, and we'll just add in a label. So similarly to PowerPoint, I'll keep comparing it to PowerPoint. We add something onto the screen. I can resize it how I want. You can actually see that this label is showing up over here and that I've selected it. Also, kind of like in PowerPoint, I have whatever I've selected on a screen, the properties and the information about that is going to show up over here on this right side. And so it's saying, here's the properties, your label is label 1. I can rename that if I want to. And right here I have my basic display properties. And then if I want, I can go into advanced. I can change the text here, so we'll just call this Lego Set Tracker 3000. And let's change some of the other things here. So we'll center it. We'll make the font a little bit bigger. See how big that is. Sounds good. And we'll change some of the colors. So we'll go over here and we'll do this blue. Now we got to do yellow because, well, we won't do yellow. I was going to say let's do Lego colors, but that's too much. Okay, Lego Set Tracker 3000. There we go. Labels are pretty basic. There's not too much going on as far as properties go. So now let's add one more and then we'll do our first formula here. So I'll add in another label. Automatically it calls it label 2 and it adds it over here on our screen here. And let's say this is we want to display the user's name. So what I could do is right here I can just type in text. I could technically type in my own name, but I'm wanting to dynamically bring in the user's name of whoever is in the app. And so if you see that I've selected this control right here, right in this formula bar, now this is super similar to Excel, right? So I have my little function thing here and it's saying, hey, the text property is set to the word text. So if I want to look at all the different properties of my label, I can click on this drop down and this shows me all the different properties that I want to change on the label. And we'll keep it on text for right now, but something I will, well, actually, let me get back to that. So let's do our first formula. And to pull in the user's information, we're just going to use the user function. So just like in Excel, I just type in the name of the formula, and then I do an open parentheses to start the function. And normally in Excel, you need to pass in parameters, giving the formula some information so it can execute the formula and then return back what it figured out. And this function, it's always doing the same thing no matter what. It's just grabbing the data about the user. So I actually don't have to give it anything. I can just close the formula. And technically it's working right now. But you can see, so this is super helpful. And this is something that was really confusing when I first started. And so I'll point this out right now. If you're not, if you're ever at a point where you're getting the little red squigglies that something is wrong, you can check what the data type is that you're working with. And it's really helpful to just know, hey, what is this formula really doing? What data am I working with? Because that's 90% of the errors you're getting is the data is off in some way, usually. And so you can see that I'm getting a record, which basically means I'm getting back multiple types of data about the user. And technically what the user function is getting is it's getting the email of the user, the display name of the user, and the user's profile picture. But since the label is just wanting to display text, then it can't really display all three of those things, right?
You're trying to shove an object into a text field.
Yes, I'm trying to explain that in non-developer. Thanks for simplifying that for me. So how you dive deeper into this formula, or how you get one of those three things, right, is you can just hit period, and I guess it's getting four things. I've never had to use that one, but here's the email of the user, the full name, and the image. So right now we just want the full name, so I could either type that in or I can just select it. So I'll just click on full name. And there you go. So it's pulling in my username right there. You can see what the formula is doing and what it's returning right here as well. So if you're ever wanting to know what a formula is doing, you can actually highlight it right here and it'll show you that. So there we have it. Let's kind of center this a little bit here. And I'll center that right there.
Is there like documentation so you can see all like the methods you can call?
Yeah, yeah. So there's actually I'll leave in the PowerPoint, there's a whole, someone did a really awesome blog post that just goes, here's all the formulas, here's all examples for all the formulas and how to use them and everything. That's super helpful too. Something else that's helpful, this Copilot thing is kind of nice. You can have it explain the formula that you're doing. That can be sort of helpful. That's been kind of nice, but.
Nope.
Sorry, is it too much?
We're all looking at our phones.
So now let's add in a button here. I don't have too much time, so we'll go a little faster. So let's add in a button, and we want this button to take us to a new part of our app that's going to display the Lego sets that we're wanting to track. So I'm going to add this button, and we're going to say view Lego sets. And now let's add in a new screen. So let's go to our new screens here, and they have lots of templates. Microsoft loves their templates. So we can add a blank screen. You can have it give you different sections. And I compare this to PowerPoint again. It has lots of different basically layouts of slides, right? And so this is kind of that same idea. You can say, hey, there's this whole approval request template screen you could add into your app. Here's a calendar screen, an email screen, and so on. So I'll just do the blank screen for now. And if I double click on this, we can actually just set this to view Lego sets screen. Let's rename that one.
You tend to rename all of your objects so you know what they do.
I rename all the screens for sure, and then I rename only the ones that I'm gonna reference ever. I mean, sometimes you're like, there's so much going on, I just need to name these so I know what's happening. But this button, I won't really rename it unless I'm gonna somehow reference it later on. But I usually rename, like when you have a gallery, and so that's actually the next thing we'll add here. Let's add in a gallery. This app's not gonna be pretty, but let's add in a gallery to display some data. There we go. And we'll do a blank vertical gallery. But galleries are one of those places where I like to rename basically everything inside of it, because if you're trying to figure out what am I clicking on inside of here, what field is this, I like to just have it all labeled right there. That's kind of nice. But if you try to label everything, it gets a little crazy. But I do like to keep it standardized too. So hopefully this is another helpful tip, but like with buttons, if I will relabel, like save any button that's like I'm saving and deleting and whatever. I'll usually label it BTN and then whatever it's doing. And so home button or something like that. But the reason for that, and this is super helpful that they've added this now, so this is a side tangent really quick, but this search feature is really helpful. And if I've named things okay, I can say, oh, I'm trying to find this button. Let me type in BTN, boom, all my buttons come up. Or, oh, I want to find all the delete buttons, type in delete, and it's like, oh, here's all my delete buttons, right? So that's really helpful. It does have a replace now, which is really helpful as well. I've used that a lot to just search throughout the whole app and replace something. Right now, it doesn't look like it'd be very helpful, of course, because with really basic apps, but once apps start to get really complicated, being able to search through and find, I need to change this formula that's saving data, and I need to change it everywhere in the app. So let me find that same formula everywhere and change it and tweak it. And so this has been one of the best things they've added, honestly, is this whole search capability is amazing. Real quick, we'll go to this
Little
button.
things in life.
I know, gosh. So to take the user to another screen when they click on a button we're going to use the navigate function. And the navigate function wants to know the first thing, it's like, what screen do you want to go to? We want to go to the view Lego sets screen. Type that right. And next we want to hit a comma, and it says, how do you want to transition to that screen? We want to do the fade, and I think that is everything. So we'll just close that out. And now I can click play over here, and that'll kind of do a little play mode of my app. I can click on this button, and it takes us to our new blank screen. There you go. I got really excited when I first learned that. I was like, this is the coolest thing. So, hopefully, oh man. But the other thing you can do is just hold down the Alt key. And so I'm holding down the Alt key and I can click on the button. It kind of acts as if I'm playing the app right now. So there you have that. So let's now connect to data really quick. And I want to show this a little bit more, and then we can, I wish we had more time, this is why it's hard. I want to get to some of the other things in the presentation, but let's connect to some data. I can connect to it right here since this gallery normally points to some type of data. But let's go to this little cylinder guy right here. And this is where I can connect to other data and other tools in the app. So I'll click on add data. Come down here to connectors. And I'll scroll down until I see SharePoint. For some reason, I have 3 separate connections to SharePoint. Let's click on that one. And it's going to pull in all your different SharePoint sites. I'll click on Ben's site. And we will do our Lego set tracker list. And I'll connect that. And so now, right now, the gallery it's technically trying to display, well, let me change it real quick. Actually, we've got our data in here. The app is connected to the data, but now the gallery is not displaying the data just yet. So if I click on the gallery, I go to the items property right here, and right now it's just this custom gallery sample that Power Apps gives you. If you ever get this option, we can see data type table, and click down and it'll say what's inside of this table right here. So it's just some sample data. But let's change this to our Lego set tracker. There we go. And you can see it's pulling in some of this SharePoint data from our SharePoint list for our Lego set tracker. So, but now we want to display this data inside of our gallery. So galleries are kind of confusing if you haven't worked with them before. But basically you have to think of it as everything I'm doing inside of this gallery, I'm doing to the first item. And whatever formulas and everything I do in the first item is how the gallery is going to evaluate it for all the formula, or for all the items throughout the rest of the gallery. And that'll make a little bit more sense in a second.
It's kind of like the card thing that you're talking about in the beginning. It's kind of like a card, right? As you create the card and then it repeats it for everything. It's a pattern.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's add in basically a gallery. We can add in almost anything inside of it. So let's just add in a few text labels. And you can see it's starting to pull in some of the data from the SharePoint list. And it starts to, just like we were saying, it's a pattern. So it's repeating everything I'm doing in this first item here. And let's add in a few more. There's our Hogwarts castle. It's a lot of money. Here's our description right here. Can stretch this out a little bit more. And we'll add in one more here. So here's our status is not owned. This one is my only one I have right now. $15. It's the flying car in Harry Potter. Anyways, it's pretty cool though. It's pretty awesome.
Where did you click again to add those fields?
So I have to make sure I've clicked inside of this first item right here. And so you'll kind of see the box around the first item. And then if I just go to the insert tab and just hit any of these things inside of here, I can add in most of them. Sometimes it's like, hey, you can't add that to a gallery, but most of the time I can add in.
But it's automatically just going to get the next field and
Right.
Did you
Yeah.
just something text or like, I didn't see how you got from one to the next. Like the first one came in and we clicked text. And you just did another one that was text?
Yeah. So if I
The
hit,
first one, it's column, so it's the title is the first one,
right.
and then the next column, and does it use the default G to order the columns?
I think it does, actually. I think it just pulls in, yeah, that would be right. It just pulls in the default, hey, this is the next field in the list, and there's the next one, then there's the next one. It just starts pulling in whatever fields you've added. So if I click on this and hit insert and do text label again, it's gonna pull in the next field, which is date built. And the only one I built is the second one, so that's why nothing's showing up here or here, it's just showing up for that one. You can see that it says, to point to the right field, it's saying this item dot title. And so this item pulls in that item that it's looking at inside of SharePoint. And remember, it's evaluating this every single time. So this item means Hogwarts Castle for the first one, but this item means Flying Horde Anglia for the second one.
Is it safe to assume if you have a sort in your default view, you're gonna get the same sort here?
I think it just pulls it in probably by ID or something. I don't know what actually the default sort is. But we only have a few minutes, but tell me what you guys would like to, what would be helpful to go over, because I can go over kind of how it works with galleries more. I can show some examples.
So let's talk about on the property pane, because you could go in the property pane and say, where the price is, instead I want the color or something different. So show us how you
All
adjust
right.
that.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Okay, so let's go to the color and, well, so another tip, sharing all the tips to hopefully save you time. Something I never knew is you can actually click on the text over here and it'll pull up that same property up here. So there's your tip. So instead of trying to find the property way over here, you can just click on color right here and it'll pull it up. Anyways, when I found that out, I was so mad. Oh my gosh, I was like, you gotta be kidding. But anyways.
So wait, you select the field and then you go to the drop down first, or you go to your text field?
So I was just showing you can find this same property by either going to the drop down right here and selecting color, or you can come over here and select color, and then it'll do the same.
So either place,
Yeah,
Two
yeah,
ways to get the same.
two
because
ways,
it's Microsoft.
right.
There's always 42 ways to kill a cat.
So how we would change the color. So let's say if something's over $100, we want it to be red. So what we would do here is do an if function. And so I'll say, let me just get rid of this little color thing right here for now. So I'll say if, and this item, and now I can say, I want to say, hey, if the price is over $100, so I'll say this item dot price. I'll say greater than 100. And then similarly to Excel, I'll hit a comma and say, now it says, hey, what do you want it to do if the price is over 100? I'll say, I want it to be the color dot red. We'll do dark. And then I hit a comma, and now it wants, hey, what do you want it to do if the price is lower than 100? Or if this condition right here is
Expression is false.
Greater than or equal to. Yeah.
And so I can say color dot green. Now I will close it. And now it's kind of hard to see how that play. You can see it's red and this one's green. And so it's evaluating that same formula across the gallery. Something else you can do is I can come up to this text property right here. And instead of it looking like this, I want it to be formatted slightly better. So won't really do too much, but to do a little bit of formatting, I have the text function here. I want to format the price so that it looks like a currency. And now I put in how I want my formula to be for my my currency. So I'll add in the $, and I want it to, this is basically the little schema for it. So I'll just say, there's how I want the currency to look. And so then really all it did there was just add the $, but if I had decimals and everything, I'd start to put those in there. So that's some of the little things you can do with a gallery to format it. You can add in buttons and icons into here. You could change the status to look a little bit differently. If something is not owned, it's a different color, or it looks different, or it's filled in or something like that.
Does it do pagination automatically?
How that works is interesting. So that's a whole other discussion. But right now, what it's doing is it's going to grab the first 100 items. And if you scroll, so let's say I had 100 items in here, as soon as I scroll down to the bottom, it goes and grabs the next 100 items.
Lazy mode.
Yeah, but if it depends on your filtering, because if your filtering is more complex, sometimes it needs the Power App to handle it instead of SharePoint or whatever. And then it says, hey, I'm gonna get you the first 2,000 items, Power Apps, you're gonna filter them. And then it'll look like you have 2,000 items in your gallery. And so then that's a whole other thing there. But
How about like CSS sizing? Like you have an image and you're like, need to kind of have a different CSS when it's on a phone versus tablet versus.
oh, right, yeah. So that setting it up to be a tablet to work on a computer or a tablet and then versus a phone. If you actually click play here, you can come up to see what it'll look like on a phone and select what phone. So right now, this is what it would look like.
Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So it's not set up, so right now it's not set up super well for a tablet or for a phone and going back and forth, right? But as soon as I add a certain screen, now it does this a little easier for you. You can set it up without having to add one of these screens, but this shows you how it works, right? So any screen that has, hey, this little phone thing, it's technically set up to handle that. And so I'll add this approval request template screen.
So when you say handle that, does that mean that it's responsive out of the box?
Right, yeah, so it'll respond based on the sizing and it'll even show and hide different sections. And so this is what it looks like, kind of dashboardy or desktop or tablet mode. And as soon as I switch this to a phone, oh, why is it not doing it? Oh,
Maybe your Zoom or whatever.
yeah, it's my little, I might not have turned it on, actually. I think I need to, this time, so. Yeah, I need to turn on anyways, that's a whole other, it will do that. I need to change some of the settings in here to make it able to flip and everything, but it will basically, let me just show you. I really want to show this. This will be a helpful thing. So this will be one of the last things. But if I come over here this is my SharePoint site, and actually they made it different. So this method, this way doesn't work. Very confusing, but let me go back here. We'll save this. I'll come back to this thing. I'll show this really quick because I do want to show how this works. This is pretty cool. Okay, so now instead of starting from a blank app, let's start from SharePoint. Sorry, I always forget you can't do it from here. I don't know why Microsoft is funny, but so now we're going to select our SharePoint site again. We want our Lego set tracker, hit connect.
You should have Halloween activities.
Yeah. I don't know what that was for. Anyways, oh my gosh.
This Weber property in this template has wiring.
Yeah,
and
it takes a second if you want it to be able to go easily back and forth. You know what? This one's not doing it either. Why is it not doing it?
It's an outage in Redmond.
Yeah, it's not wanting to build. So anyways, it builds a template for you that lets you do it. It switches back and forth between mobile and desktop. I don't know why it's.
So
That's interesting.
you built a bunch of these. Do most people tend to run at one place or the other, or do you get a lot of back and forth?
Honestly, I feel like you want to just have almost two separate apps anyways. Usually people want a lot more functionality for desktop version, and if you try to do all of it inside an app, it just gets kind of crazy, and it makes the app, I try to make things run as efficiently as possible, and one of the things is, I'll just show like an example. Let me show this other example. So here's a financial management application. And if this was a mobile app, I wouldn't really want the menu to be right here. I'd maybe want it to be down on the bottom and things like that. And so once I take a complex app like this, I'm like, I got to design this way differently. So let me just do a whole separate mobile app that's way different. That's usually how I go about doing things.
So you give them, if you're on your phone, use this app. if you're on your desktop, use this app, or do you build like a
Right.
launcher app that will launch the app depending where they are?
You could do that too, which is pretty cool. You can you can have it, have it check what type of
Or
screen.
they just
or
have buttons
screen
to
size
say,
you're on.
pick a venue.
Right, yeah, that's how I would do it. If your app is simple enough, then you can totally do it all in one app. But typically apps are a little bit more complicated. And so that's just a way easier because you can kind of see this. So here's a gallery that has a gallery inside of it. You can see this has kind of sub items, these in the gray. So this has one sub item, this has 4. And so once you start to try to, how do you display this whole data all in one way skinnier screen? You just kind of need to do it a little differently and do it in a separate app for mobile. But anyways, do we have any other questions, or do you want me to leave with some final tips?
Do we want to walk through how to publish an app? Does that make sense to you guys, or is that just me?
I wish we had more time to go over everything, but I can't do that.
I've got no life. I'm here all night.
Session.
Okay, somebody orders a pizza and we'll. Oh man.
Rock pizza.
Let's see here. Publishing an app. We could just kind of go back into our Lego set tracker here.
3,000.
Yeah. Let me click on edit again. Publishing apps and sharing them. They've made it pretty easy to do. I mean, you come up to the publisher right here, and I can add some description to my app. You can change the logo and color and things right here too, but so we'll just say publish this version. It doesn't really give you a success message. It just kind of have to trust that it published it. It's kind of weird that it does that. I used to not do that, but now if we go back to Power Apps here to our Lego set tracker. So if I wanted to say, hey, I built this Lego set tracker, I want everyone else to use it, I can click on these 3 dots and hit share, and I automatically can use it, of course. But if I want to add some more people, I could add the Rons or Pete or whoever, and so on and so forth. I can also just say everyone, which that might not be a good idea if your company's huge or something like that. If you're at a little company, then and you're like, hey, just everyone in our 10-person company or whatever, and then everyone, you can't do that. It can go off of groups. I believe it goes off of Azure AD groups is what it goes off of. So if you're wanting to do things like that, security-wise, you start getting into different environments, and only having people in certain environments have security and things like that.
So if the app has the SharePoint list underneath it, do you then have to go give those people access to the SharePoint list, or does this do that as well?
So the app really just uses the user's credentials for everything. So you would need to share the SharePoint list. The cool thing about that though is I can actually, so go to this button here. If I let's say this is a new Lego set item. New Lego set item. What I love is I can add in some security really easily. I always forget the formula for this one, but it's finding my blog post. But if I can go to the visible property, or maybe I'll do the display mode and say if what is it? Data source info Lego set tracker source info dot create permission. Okay, so that's kind of confusing, but basically it's saying, hey, what's the create permission for this user for the Lego set tracker list? If it's true, be display mode dot edit. If it's not, display mode dot disabled. And obviously mine's edit or whatever. But
That's really cool.
it's really nice. It's super nice. And to take this even further, what I will do is I'll grab this whole piece right here, and instead of having the app check that 1,000,000 times throughout the whole app on every new button or whatever, I'll copy this piece right here and I'll go up to our app. Get rid of that. we'll go up to our app and I can set some formulas that are just, they're just gonna be used, global variables kind of to be used throughout the whole app. And I'll say, hey, the Lego set create permission, it's a little more advanced, I guess, but equals data source info. And that way the app checks it one time. And then instead of, when I go to any of my buttons, I click on this button and I say, hey, instead of checking this, just look at that variable, create Lego set permission. I think
it's just Lego set permission.
Lego set create
And
permission.
then if your formula changes, you don't have to do the global search space because you just replace your variable.
Yeah. Lego set create permission. That, so all those little things is super helpful. So then throughout the whole app, I can do this on fields. Say if you can't edit this field, but you can, I can do that. And it checks delete permissions and view permissions and everything. So that's something I actually use a lot. I do it on like a delete button too. So maybe people can create something they can't delete. So I'll just disable the delete button or completely hide it or something like that. That's been really helpful, being able to add these formulas in. Honestly, a big part of my journey with Power Apps has been learning how to build them more efficiently. I've built, if you go to this app right here, I think there's 20 screens, which is about the max that I would recommend anyone use. And each screen is kind of complicated, but it works honestly pretty decently. It does take a second to load, but it hasn't been too bad. But how it's been really helpful is, if I say, hey, I want to do a new spend plan budget item, all these buttons and everything it's pointing to all those variables. If I wasn't doing something like this, where I'm pointing to a variable instead of having it check every time, this app would be the slowest app of all time. It would just be super slow because I've got save buttons everywhere and so on and so forth. But anyways, hopefully I wanted to show little examples a little bit more. You can make some pretty awesome things with it. It can do, we've started doing comments, being able to add comments and everything, which has been a pretty cool thing. When you tie it with Power Automate, it gets even more powerful. So I'm going off on a crazy side tangent, but for example, we have a method for people to upload files. And so I have this upload file section right here. I can click on upload file. Technically right now I'm on the same screen. I've just hidden everything and just displayed a little pop-up box here. And you can,
Because that's a built-in control, it's gonna handle all the different browsers, all the different
right,
platforms. It'll work on a Mac, it'll work on an iPhone, it'll work on Windows or Edge, or even the idiots that use Safari. I mean,
Right.
people use Safari.
yeah, right, yeah. And something else about this app too is you'll notice it's taking up the whole screen, and so
Yeah.
that's something you have to configure to make sure it takes up full screen. But you can. Here's all my Lego pictures. Let's select. Okay, I'll do the Hercules one. Anyway, so here's our Hercules image. Just gonna break it. Actually, this won't break it, but anyway, so let's see if this will even work. I'll have to delete it after, but so here I'm actually running a Power Automate flow to go and upload that file, and then it sends me back, hey, I uploaded it successfully. You noticed a little green success message, and then here's my file I'm displaying. I can delete it, or we have a little import process, so this triggers another flow to go grab whatever's in this file and process it and do certain things. So it's the real power has been in combining Power Automate with Power Apps.
I didn't understand. What did you have Power Automate do in this case?
So in this case, I just had it upload the file. So it looks like
Item on the list.
Well,
yeah.
Power Apps is doing that.
Yeah, Power Apps can add SharePoint items and other things, but it doesn't handle
Okay.
uploading files very well. And
So then you
so,
technically would have had to wait. It looked like it happened instantly, but it probably didn't, right?
You had a spinner wheel there saying.
right, yeah, so technically, right here when I hit save, it runs a flow, and I pass the file information to the flow runs, loads it into SharePoint, and then sends a message back to Power Apps saying, hey, I loaded the file successfully.
Does the flow run instantaneously, or does it just put it in a queue like what I'm used to where you have to wait
It
2
runs
minutes?
instantaneously,
Oh, okay.
yeah, which that's the nice part about it, is it'll run instantly. When it runs instantly, it uses the user's credentials, so you have to make sure everything it's doing,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
gonna use the user's
Yeah.
credentials to do it this time. Which in this case, it probably should. And then while the flow is running, or just before, this is going deep, but just before the flow runs, I set a variable saying, hey, show the saving spinner. So the saving spinner shows as the flow is running,
That's really
and
cool.
then the flow says, hey, I'm done, and then I set the saving spinner to false.
Which one are the, like, were any of those like kind of like new screens or?
So this is just a little container. Containers are really helpful. That's what I'd recommend using too. And it basically just lets you kind of group.
So you hide the whole container until you're ready for
Right.
it, then you set it's visible to true. Then when you're
Yeah.
done, you set it's visible to not no more.
So let's
Yeah.
say you had a screen that had containers in it that were displayed based upon state.
Right, yeah, that's totally what I do.
So
And
if you look at it in the edit screen, there's all this stuff all over the place. You have to move around to get to what you want.
right, which, well, I mean, I could open this one up, but how I do it is I say, hey, I have a pop-up container, and within the pop-up container, I have a few different things. That way I copy the pop-up one. Anywhere I want to do a pop-up, I say, hey, I put this one in.
It's your
And
template.
then I might have a upload file within that, or I might have a delete file confirmation or whatever. And so then that just hides whenever I'm not using it. And they let you have drop shadows around containers now, which is kind of a nice.
You
little-
just had a discussion about drop shadows. Somebody here doesn't like them.
Oh, I love them.
There you go.
But anyways,
So that only vampire, only vampire.
I'm curious about the argument against drop shadows. I don't know anybody. that
So
likes
it's
it.
vampires don't like that.
what else can I mean,
So show us your learning stuff, the next.
yeah, that's a
little
good.
bit.
Real quick question though, like
Yeah.
you said, like you set up some global permissions or not global, like variables.
Variables.
Oh, right.
And you said if you didn't do that, your app would run super slow. Are
Right.
there any debug tools for like, and when your app is running slow, you're like, well, what is slowing down my app?
Okay, yeah, that's a great, okay, yeah, let's actually talk about that real quick. So one of the awesome things inside Power Apps is it has a app checker inside of it. Obviously, this one won't really have anything, but if I click on this, it'll say, hey, here's all your formulas that are wrong. And under runtime, it would say, hey, here's all the formulas that are running extra long. Take a look at them. Maybe it's more performance. I can't remember which one it is.
The other.
Yeah. Trying to think of the difference between those two, but anyways, I think it is performance actually. Accessibility is gonna say you need an accessibility label when you hover over this button or whatever it is.
Braille interface for the blind people.
Right, which it'll tell you that all the time. And but the formula one's really nice. It says, hey, you've got issues with your formulas. You select where it is. It'll take you right there to what's wrong, which is really helpful. You can add code comments. So if you do / there's some comments.
Oh, that's cool.
I do use these a lot. There starts to get a lot of stuff happening, kind of like, this whole save button running the flow and doing everything. So I have a code comment saying, hey, here's the flow running. Hey, here's this happening, this happening. And I like that helps me a lot too. I do the code comments a lot, which is very helpful. And Copilot will actually even write those for you. So you could give it your whole list of formulas and say add some code comments of what this is doing. So that's kind of a cool thing it can do. I don't trust it yet. I'll try it out. I should just try it out. But let me share some last little tips here. Here is the Lego Rivendell set. I can't remember how much that one is.
700.
Yeah, I added some ideas of different apps. I think that's one of the hardest things is just to think of what can I use this for. But really quick, I'll just go over the main points. But paper processes, anything you're using with paper is usually a good use case for Power Apps to be able to replace. Sometimes it's not, but usually it's really helpful. Power Apps has a PDF function to just generate a PDF of anything on the screen, which is pretty cool now. They used to not have that. They also have a print function too. Manage list of data like Lego sets, approval processes, which is, I've been playing this presentation. Let's play it, I guess. Approval processes are pretty, that's usually what I use it for. When you mix that in with a Power Automate, you can do some really awesome stuff. I had an Elrond streamlined approval app. I was going to show you what ChatGPT said with that. Had a whole way of how the fellowship could have done the approval process. It was pretty awesome.
One of us may be a geek,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he's in a room at geek.
Oh, man. Last few things, data capturing. So if you're in the field, if you need to capture data, capture pictures, things like that, work orders. One of them that I've thought of before is a quality alert system. So if you're in a manufacturing setting and something's wrong, if you can take a picture of it, alert something right away, that's kind of nice instead of having to get to a computer.
Your safety guys would love that as well for this reporting system.
Yeah, see, that's huge. So we gotta go find all those people. That's a great point. Here's the Indiana Jones Lego set, and here are some. So if I'll leave the screen up, I can maybe put it in the chat or something. But so Shane Young is an awesome guy. He's been around since Power Apps was going.
He's a Microsoft employee, right?
He used to be, I
Used to be.
think,
Not anymore.
but now he has his own company. He does Power Apps 911. He's really awesome. With his YouTube channel, there's a few YouTubers out there that do Power Apps, but what I like most about him is he always brings in a really real world scenarios, very real about things. And he has a lot of beginner friendly videos out there. So he's really awesome. I'd recommend following him. Matthew Devani, I think I'm saying his name right. His blog is really awesome. He does a blog every week, and
He has a lot of Power Automate stuff as well.
Yeah, I love him. He's really sharp and has a lot of very helpful resources. So this blog, this formula reference right here is from him, and it's a list of all the Power Apps functions and examples.
I think he's one of the guys that does a tip of the week on Sunday, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I get that. It's awesome.
He likes his cats. But he's awesome. He has a lot of really good places to go with Power Apps and what you can do. The other tip is just to build apps for yourself. Birthday tracker, shopping list, fitness tracker. I built to try to get used to the barcode scanner with Power Apps. I built an app that scanned items and then searched them on Amazon. Wasn't very helpful, but it was pretty fun to figure out how that worked.
And I said, oh, Amazon kind of does that already, but
Totally does that already.
Whatever, it'll take a picture of it. Anyways, that was really fun. I think those things people build games and Power Apps.
Sometimes you have to reinvent the wheel.
no, it's
Sure.
good though, but it's like.
Oh my gosh, it was cool. It makes you think, the possibilities of what you can do. The last one is finding a mentor. However you can find a mentor.
I found one.
You're all in there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I think that's just super helpful to have. When I've been a mentor to people, I've seen them learn it faster. Maybe not because of me, but I think being able to be building an app and then go to someone to ask them questions like, what's wrong with this formula? How do I do this? And for someone to be able to just tell you, oh, you're trying to do this, let me just tell you how to do that or explain to you. That's really helpful. I feel like, and so that's my last little tip there, to find some type of Power Apps guru person, or become the guru too.
I feel compelled to give you $469.
Yeah, that's how I should do this.
Personally,
It's not discounted. It's still-
$469.
You got a coupon code.
Here's my
Got
honorable
sets.
mentions, my Lego sets, got the Hocus Pocus.
DeLorean. I love it.
Dude, that's so cool. That one's really cool. It has, what did it have? in it? It has the hoverboard and like the rod that anyways.
My son-in-law builds fancy cars in Lego, so that's how I know that they're super expensive. when
Yeah.
you get those kids.
Oh my God.
Our last conference, we gave away an F1, a McLaren F1. Oh my gosh, that was very sad to give that away too. They're so complicated.
You are allowed to buy two, Ron, just saying.
I know, one of these days, Ben, that's why Ben's
I
out.
know.
And Ben would like to say you're allowed to buy
We're
three.
close, we're
Oh
close.
my gosh, this will be my last thing. My last Power Apps tip, just kidding, is my dream for my Legos is I want to have the Hogwarts Express go to the Hogwarts Castle and then Hogsmeade. And then this one right here is the Diagon Alley. And then it'll go to Rivendell and then the Doom Tower. And then it'll be done. And that's it. So that'll take, that'll be like
Into the sunset.
$5,000. So that might take a while.
I wonder if you go from Diagon Alley to Rivendell and the magic systems change, if there's like some disorientation, some nausea, do they?
Oh, man. Anyways, hopefully that was helpful.
That's great.
If anyone wants the slides, they can email me and I can send them to you or something. There you have it. Thank you.
You might be able to talk Sovereign into paying the year-end bonuses and Lego sets now.
I know, Christmas bonus. Just wrap it and, oh yeah, that was.
Kyle, you're the only guy not in the room. Do you have any questions, feedbacks?
There's another, Ron.
Oh. Ron two.
Yeah.
He's probably eating food.
Yeah, it is dinner time.
All right, well, thank you, Ben. That was really, really good. That's,
Well,
yeah,
cool.
a lot of good tips. That is. That was fantastic. Thank you.
We'll build stuff, y'all.
Indeed. Again, we announced it at the beginning. I'll just announce it one more time at the end. We're not meeting on our typical fourth Tuesday next month.
It'll be the sixth Tuesday.
Thanksgiving next month.
Yeah. So December, I gotta go verify that's actually the third, and I'm not giving out fake information here.
It's Tuesday.
Yep, December 3rd, Tuesday, December 3rd will be our next meeting. So hope to see y'all there.
Bye, online people.